Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. I am your host, Josh Davis, also known as Crash. Today is Monday, January 23rd, 2023, and I am here to talk to you guys about tonight's 7-game slate in the NBA. If this is your first time watching us, if you would hit the like button and then hit subscribe. After you've done those two things, if you would hit the alarm bell, that will let you know when our newest podcast has gone live. And if you're new to DFS Coach Talk, we would love to have you join us. We have memberships that start as low as $9 a week. You can join us at dfscoachtalk.com, and we'd love to have you join us. So let's go ahead and get into this slate. It's like I said, we've got a 7-game slate. The first game we have is going to be the Milwaukee Bucks at the Detroit Pistons. It starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. Milwaukee is favored by 11. Has a 237 over under. Looks like the Bucks will be getting some of their key guys back. Giannis and Chris Middleton are both expected to play tonight. So as a Bucks fan, I'm obviously hoping they do. Killian Hayes was ruled out just a little bit ago for Detroit. So along with Marvin Bagley and Isaiah Stewart, Killian Hayes will be out for the Pistons. Projected starting lineup for Milwaukee, you have Drew Holiday, Grayson Allen, Chris Middleton, Giannis, and Brook Lopez. Then you have for the Pistons, Jaden Ivey, Sadiq Bey, Bojan Bogdanovic, Isaiah Livers, and Jalen Duren. For me in this game, I do think that Giannis is in a decent spot. He is coming back from an injury, but he's only been out for a couple weeks, so not too bad. He's 11-8 on DraftKings, 11-4 on FanDuel, $54 on Yahoo. So he is a little expensive. Detroit's a little worse than average against power forwards. They've allowed the 11th most fantasy points to power forwards. Giannis did have 68 DraftKings points last time he faced them, which was on November 2nd. I still like Drew Holiday. I know with Giannis and Middleton back, it's going to hurt him a little bit as far as the usage and everything, but he's just been playing so good. And at his price, $9,000 on DraftKings, $8,800 on FanDuel, $36 on Yahoo. He's still in play for me. The Pistons have allowed the second most fantasy points to point guards, and he's averaged 46.5 DraftKings points against Detroit this year. I also think that Brook Lopez is still in play. They've allowed the 8th most fantasy points to centers this year. However, there are some really good options at center at cheaper prices. So I do think that you're probably going to want to go to them instead of him. I don't really like anybody on the Detroit side, so we can go ahead and move on to the next game. Boston at Orlando. Game starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. Boston's favored by 7.5. Has a 229.5 over under. Malcolm Brogdon, Marcus Smart, Robert Williams are all going to be out for Boston tonight. So that's probably why Boston's not a bigger favorite than they are, given this matchup with Boston at 35-12 and Orlando coming in at 17-29. Orlando's pretty healthy. They have Okeke and Schofield out. Jonathan Isaac is supposed to be back with them for the first time in a very long time, so that'll be interesting to see how he does. Projected starting lineup for the Celtics, you got Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Grant Williams, and Al Horford. You've got for the Magic, Markelle Fultz, Gary Harris, Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero, and Wendell Carter. This game, I like Jason Tatum. He's had 70-plus DraftKings points his last 2 games. Orlando's allowed the 8th most fantasy points to power forwards this year. He's 10-9 on DraftKings, 11-1 on FanDuel, and $48 on Yahoo. I also like Jaylen Brown. He's 9,200 on DraftKings, 8,400 on FanDuel, $38 on Yahoo. He had 54.5 DraftKings points last time he faced Orlando, and they have allowed the 8th most fantasy points to small forwards. Obviously, with Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon out, Derek White is a key play. 5,400 on DraftKings, 5,500 on FanDuel, $13 on Yahoo. I would expect him to be very, very chalky. But I also think Tyus Jones is just as good, if not better, if Ja Morant's out. So we'll have to keep an eye on that news. Don't really like anybody on the Orlando side. We can move on. Next game, we have Atlanta Hawks and Chicago Bulls at 8 p.m. Eastern. Chicago favored by 1, has a 239 over under. I think that might be the Second highest. No, there are a little bit later, but it's pretty close to the others, which are around 240 over under on the slate. Then you have for the Hawks, looks like Okongwu could probably be out. And then the Bulls, Lonzo Ball, of course, and Javonte Green are out. And Goran Dragic is questionable. And let me see the latest on Okongwu. Yeah, he's questionable as well. So projected starting lineup for Atlanta: Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, Clint Capella. For the Bulls, Ayo Dosunmu, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Patrick Williams, and Nikola Vucevic. In this game, there's only a couple plays that I really like. One of them is site-specific. And so for the first play, it's Trae Young. He's 9,500 on DraftKings, 9,700 on FanDuel, $39 on Yahoo. He's averaged 48.2 DraftKings points his last 5 games against the Bulls. He had 53.5 against them on December 21st. The other play, there is another play that I was looking at before that, the Robert Williams news. Probably just going to go to Al Horford with Robert Williams out. I don't even know if I mentioned that, but yeah, probably going to go to Al Horford. Oh, or Grant Williams. You can look at him too. But John Collins was another play that I was looking at. Probably not going to get there now with Horford and Williams, Grant Williams. For the Bulls, DeMar DeRozan's only 8,000 on FanDuel, and last I checked, he was the highest projected owned player over there. So 8,000 on FanDuel is probably too cheap for him. He's averaged 48.5 DraftKings points the last 5 times he's faced against the Hawks. They're about average against small forwards. They've allowed the 15th most fantasy points to them. So it is a good matchup for DeRozan. But yeah, at 8,000 on FanDuel, I think he's a little bit too cheap. The next game, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Houston Rockets. It also starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. Minnesota is favored by 5.5. It has a 234 over-under. You've got quite a bit of injury news on the Minnesota side. Looks like Forbes, Gobert, Prince are all questionable. McLaughlin and Karl-Anthony Towns, of course, is still out. And then on Houston, Jabari Smith Jr. is questionable. Looks like he's questionable. And then Kevin Porter Jr. is still out. So for the Timberwolves, you've got starting lineup projected to be D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Kyle Anderson, and Rudy Gobert. I'm pretty sure that Naz Reid is going to end up starting, but we'll see what happens there. And then Jalen Green, Eric Gordon, Kenyon Martin Jr., Tari Eason, and Alperen Sengun for the Rockets. I like Anthony Edwards on the Timberwolves side. He's 9,300 on DraftKings, 8,900 on FanDuel, $36 on Yahoo. He had 71 DraftKings points against Houston on Saturday. So he just faced them just the other day, and they have allowed the second most fantasy points to small forwards this year. I also like D'Angelo Russell. I'm not sure what happened. I had his price. Let me pull that up real quick. On DraftKings, he's 6,700. On FanDuel, he's 65. And on Yahoo, he is $23. As you know, Houston has allowed the most fantasy points to point guards. So I do like D'Angelo Russell as well as Anthony Edwards. And then on the Houston side, especially if Gobert's out, I think Sengun's a really good play. He's 8,400 on both DraftKings and FanDuel, $33 on Yahoo. He had 57.5 DraftKings points against the Timberwolves on Saturday, and he's averaged 51.1 in his last 5 games. Last 3, 70.3, 54, and 57.5. So I still think that even though he's come up a little bit in his price, quite a bit from where he was, a month or so ago, Sengun is definitely still in play for me. Next game, we have Charlotte Hornets and the Utah Jazz at 9 p.m. Eastern. Utah is favored by 7.5, has a 240 over under. And for the Hornets, it looks like LaMelo Ball is probably not going to play. He's questionable. And so we'll have to see what happens there. And then Cody Martin, he is doubtful. So he's likely not going to be playing. Kelly Oubre Jr. is out. And then for the Jazz, Kelly Olynyk is out. Projected starting lineup for the Hornets. looks like I don't even see Terry Rozier on there. So if Ball's out, I'm sure Rozier should be starting. And then Gordon Hayward, Jalen McDaniels, PJ Washington, Mason Plumlee. For the Jazz, Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, Malik Beasley, Lauri Markkanen, and Walker Kessler. As I mentioned, if LaMelo Ball is out, I do like Terry Rozier. He's 8,000 on DraftKings, 8,100 on FanDuel, $30 on Yahoo. And then for the Jazz, I like Walker Kessler. He's 5,800 on DraftKings. He's 7,900 on FanDuel. So it's not a really good value over there. And $22 on Yahoo. The Hornets have allowed the most fantasy points to centers. He had a rough game against Brooklyn on Friday. He only had like 14 fantasy points or something like that. I think it's a really good spot for him to bounce back. He's been averaging about 37.5 DraftKings points his last 5 games. So he's going to be a DraftKings and Yahoo only play for me, most likely. Probably not going to get there on FanDuel. Let me see what Terry Rozier's ownership looks like right now. Yeah, very low. But if LaMelo Ball's out, I do think he's a good play still. All right, next game, San Antonio Spurs and the Portland Trail Blazers. It starts at 10 p.m. Eastern. Portland is favored by 8.5. Has the second highest over-under at 240.5, just above the Charlotte and Utah game, which is at 240. And so for the Spurs, Devin Vassell and Justice Winslow are out for the Blazers. So those are the injuries there. And then projected starting lineup for the Spurs, Trey Jones, Romeo Langford, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, and Jakob Poeltl. For the Blazers, Damian Lillard, Anthony Simons, Josh Hart, Jeremy Grant, and Yusuf Nurkic. Before I get into the top plays, let me go ahead and look at the questions here. Don't see any so far. Okay, cool. All right, so for the Spurs, I do like Keldon Johnson. He's 7,400 on DraftKings, 7,100 on FanDuel, $28 on Yahoo. He's probably the only Spur that I'll be playing if I play any at all, but he is in play for me. And then Damian Lillard, he's just been playing so good lately. He had a little bit of a down night last night, but that game got way out of hand early, and then the Blazers came back, ended up losing. It was kind of a crazy game. But I think he'll bounce back. The Spurs are terrible on defense. He's 10-1 on DraftKings, 10-2 on FanDuel, $39 on Yahoo. He had 60.3 DraftKings points against the Spurs on December 14th, and he's averaged 57.5 his last 5 games. So I definitely like Damian Lillard. And then the last game we have at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. This game will be on NBA TV. The other game is Atlanta and Chicago. That's going to be on NBA TV. So you got a doubleheader over there tonight with no football. Got to have something to watch. So you got that to look forward to. 2-point favorite for Sacramento. Highest over-under of the slate at 245.5. Ja Morant and Steven Adams are both questionable. Of course, Danny Green is still out, and Chimezie Metu is out for the is out for the Kings. But for the Grizzlies, with Morant being questionable, I think he'll be out. Usually when these guys are ruled questionable this late in the day, they end up not playing. Probably the same thing with Steven Adams. So if Morant plays, he's in play, but I don't think he will. So Tyus Jones, obviously, he's probably going to be one of the highest owned players on the slate. He's 4,300 on DraftKings. He is 6,100 on FanDuel. So he's not exactly a bargain on FanDuel, $18 on Yahoo. So DraftKings and Yahoo for sure, and he might get a little bit over-owned based on his price on FanDuel. I like Desmond Bane. A lot of people are talking about Dillon Brooks too, but I actually prefer Bane. I know he's more expensive, but that's just my take. I think Bane is the better option for tournaments. And then, of course, in like cash and single entries, you're going to be looking at Dillon Brooks because he's like 4,300 or something on DraftKings. Let me check real quick. It's really cheap. 4,800. So 4,800 on DraftKings. Brooks is 5,400 on FanDuel. And then he is $16 on Yahoo. So Morant's out, which I think he will be, then Dylan Brooks is going to be pretty popular, especially on DraftKings at 4,800. And Tyus Jones, same thing with him. But like I said, Desmond Bane is actually my favorite out of those three. For the Kings, De'Aaron Fox, he's 8,700 on DraftKings, 8,300 on FanDuel, $35 on Yahoo. He had 61 DraftKings points against the Grizzlies earlier this year, and I do like De'Aaron Fox. I also like Keegan Murray. He's definitely somebody to watch. He had an awesome game the other day, and I think that he's definitely trending the right way. He's 4,400 on DraftKings, 5,300 on FanDuel, and $15 on Yahoo. Before I get into my PrizePicks plays, let's go ahead and check the chat. Spurs get blown out. I don't know, man. Portland's not looking good. They've lost, I think it's like 5 in a row or something now. So I'm not sure about that one. They could, but I mean, they were blowing out the Lakers at halftime, and then they just let them right back, and the Lakers actually won by, I think, double digits at the end. So never know with a young team like Portland how they're going to play. But, Spurs are young too. It should be where, Portland should have a comfortable win. But like I said, you just never know. We talked about this the other day, Deb and I. You just predict all these blowouts, and you think a game's going to go a certain way, and it just doesn't seem to happen. So I'm not going to go out and predict any blowouts anytime soon, most likely. So for the PrizePicks plays, though, I like Alperen Sengun more than 5.5 assists. He's gone over that number in each of his last 5 games, and I just think that Minnesota is really going to focus their game plan on stopping him from scoring and stuff after what he did to them on Saturday, the best that they can. So I think it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for him to get assists. So I like the over at 5.5 for him. And then I like, as I mentioned, Walker Kessler is in a really good bounce back against the Hornets, who've been awful against centers, more than 32.5 fantasy score. I have 1 or 2 more plays that I'll have for our members, so you definitely want to check that out in our Discord. Let me check the questions one more time. Yeah, Al Horford and Derek White both. I like both of them. They're both good. So, yeah, you've got Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon out, so White's in play. And then with Robert Williams out, I think Al Horford's in play too. Yeah, Peyton Pritchard's in play too. That's another one. That's another value. Well, guys, I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I believe Deb will be on here tomorrow and let you know what's happening with tomorrow's slate. I think it's like a 4-game slate or something like that, so a little less games to go over. Hope everybody has a great night. Let's absolutely crush it. I know Coach gave us an awesome lineup in Yahoo last night, and I'm hoping that we can crush all 3 sites tonight. So hope everybody has a great evening. And we'll see you again tomorrow when we look to crush it in NBA, DFS, and PrizePicks. Thank you.